Everybody, wait a minute.
What's up, world, and welcome to another special breaking news edition of I Mix What I Like, right here at I Mix What I Like. Again, I'm Jared Ball, happy to be your host. As we began last week exposing the Black Excellence Deep State, or BEDS, we have already seen rippling effects, and already we've seen some very odd responses. As we reported initially last week, the Black Excellence Deep State seeks to replace Black power, Black radicalism, and liberatory analyses and politics with shiny celebrity, punditry, and Black capitalism. And despite already exposing the transcripts from their Signal chat, we see first this odd attempt at disavowal by 19 Keys on Twitter, where he writes, "Black excellence is the scam that replaced Black power." But as we will continue to cover and expose here, BEDS has been redefining Black power for quite a while. But more on that later. For now, as I said, the rippling effect of the disruption of our exposure of BEDS continues to destabilize their network. And as such, we've been reached out to by none other than Kanye West, whose very viral interview this week with DJ Academics, he claims, is one big BEDS misunderstanding. So I just wanted to come through because I know you all were the ones looking to expose the Black excellence deep state. And what people are seeing in this video that's now going viral all over the place is not what they think it is. Okay. Well, what is it then? What you see in this interview with me talking to DJ Academics was a setup. A setup? If you watch the entire thing, if they were to release the entire video, you would see that I thought I was there doing my test screening for SpikeLee's BlackKlansman 2. BlackKlansman 2? SpikeLee as part of BEDS, which I was a part of. In fact, I really was the founder. I should be credited with all of this. But SpikeLee betrayed me. Okay. Add his name to the list. But that's why I'm appearing now only as a symbol, like Prince. See, because what you saw in the video, I'm a method actor, like Daniel Day-Lewis. So I showed up thinking Spike told me to come through to screen test for BlackKlansman 2, and come to find out, they're trying to use me now to hide themselves. So that's why you were in the BlackKlansman hood. And I got more to say. Yay! Mr. West, are you okay? I just need to retract a little bit. I was a little confused. I think someone must have given me what I think people, your producers must have given me what Dante gave Lord Jamar.
Phrasing?
Oh no. Do you need medical attention? I take back everything I was just saying. It wasn't SpikeLee. It was you all leaking the BEDS transcript last week messed me up. And your producers confused me with their Dante Nero
black pimping trickery.
No.
Your atheist, socialist, communist schemery. There's no beds. It's just the...
Well, everyone, apologies. It appears that Kanye West's transmission or line has been severed. And we here at I Mix What I Like hope he's okay. But anyway, live from these tree-lined streets, it's Saturday night.
I mix what I like, what I like. Mix what I like is exactly where you want and need to be. I mix what I like, organic, vegan, soul food from your immediate diet. Live healthy. Live healthy. I mix what I like, what I like.
We're here on I Mix What I Like. You may check us out on imixwhatilike.org, where you can see all these other shows and what my daddy liked and other cool things.
And I'm muted. What's up, world? Welcome back, everybody, to I Mix What I Like live right here at I Mix What I Like. Greetings for this Saturday dusk live. And welcome, everybody. Please do like, share, subscribe. Put this in your socials. And yeah, I hope you all had a little bit of fun with that, you know. And I did have some fun. So yeah, I know I'm unmuted now though. You hear me now, right? Yeah, everybody hears me now. Wait, you don't hear me now? I just tested it. Yeah. I appreciate that. You all do hear me now, right? I mean, I did test. I'm hearing it in my other, but thank you very much. Yeah, okay, good. Thank you, Robin. Just making sure because actually got a lot. I got quietly got a lot to get to with you all tonight. Have a little bit of fun. So, but thank you all for joining me, and to those who will see and hear this later, peace and welcome to you as well. Hope everybody's as good as can at least be expected. And yeah, so let's go. Let's just keep it moving a little bit. So what obviously what a little bit prompted that was the interview, and I did not watch it. I've seen other people summarize it here and there. I've seen Hassan Campbell tell people not to play it because it's going to get your channel destroyed. But I was sent specifically by a couple of people, and again, I admit it. I like when this happens. I like I like when folks all catch something that they know I would be interested in, and I do want to get to a little bit of that real quick because there is a clip from that interview where I know it's it's out of what would be our context, but he oddly. So this is not to excuse anyone. I don't mean to give him an excuse, but I have long felt like ever since that. Do you all remember years ago when he had that moment with Sway, the famous, you ain't got the answer, Sway interview, and to me, it was in the context of him running into all these problems with the fashion community, the fashion industry. And where essentially, and at the time, I felt that what we were watching was someone who was probably struggling with a lot of different things, including relative youth and fame, but was also struggling with finally seeing the ceiling that he was being allowed to reach in terms of ownership. So when he was running into Adidas and whoever else, Ralph Lauren, I think, was at one part of it. To me, I justified it as he was trying to explain to Sway what he was experiencing and really didn't have the vocabulary or the political education or whatever and just had a sort of a crash out moment. But I've always thought that what we've been seeing ever since was someone who did have some sort of, I think, thought about race and class and influence from his parents to a certain extent and whatever. And it's clearly, this is clearly, gone off the rails, but that's what initially. So when I saw this clip, I did watch just a few seconds. So I'm just going to play this brief part here. And which was, I was at
people not even in a position.
And let's see, 26, 24. So yeah, we'll just pick it up for a few seconds here.
Telling y'all to follow me or do not. Yeah, people not even in a position to follow me. It's like I could change hearts and minds, perception, but at the end of the day, you still got to go work for a white man. You still got to work for a Jewish man that works for a white man. The black dollar has been so decentralized since gentrification and the fall of Black Wall Street that it's next to impossible for a community to get on their feet, get past the drugs, the food. The food's the original drug. The hurting, the fucking 25%, definite, not chance, but definitely being locked up, the abortion rates. Like our position, I don't have the exact answer to the equation of how to get out of where we are.
So in that brief moment, there's not a lot that I would think is wrong. I think that it just, without political education, organization, sort of a certain studied analysis of some kind, experience of some kind, it just goes off the rail. But in that clip right there, I think he's largely correct. Black people are not situated to be in any kind of position, have not organized, have not been exposed to avenues in the economy and the society that would make other efforts more possible, and are not situated to be in some situation to and then are economically definitely not in a situation and are policed into or out of a situation. So I thought, now again, the understanding of gentrification, segregation, Black Wall Street, which we're going to come back to, and its impact on in the economy and its impact on Black people is not understood. It's not well laid out, not properly thought out. There's a lot of Klan hoods and who knows what other forms of medication or drugs or both that he's on. I don't know. But in that brief moment, I thought it was like a glimpse of what may at one point have been possible with Kanye. So, and no doubt. So there you go. Okay, that's well said, Brittany. Word salad with a few truth croutons So, but that was about all I could take. And then I didn't, I just, and oddly, anyway, well, there's a couple of things that we'll come back to references. So that's what got me to thinking about the whole thing. And then I do kind of think it's funny to think of that he would have thought he was showing up in a method actor way to audition for BlackKlansman too. All right. Okay. So every semester I use, and if any of you ever have, during, as we go through these things tonight, have, or this evening, have any thoughts, questions, comments, queries, conundrums, catechisms, cacophony, calumny, consternation, condemnation, consternation, please make a note and be ready to at least refresh it in the chat so I can come back to it in a little bit. But so most semesters when I have a media studies class of some kind, I like to introduce students to MarshallMcLuhan. And now that Armand Towns has done this great work on black media philosophy. Oh my goodness, I can't believe now I'm gonna have to go find. Anyway, I'm messing up the title. But now that he's done this work where he does, that is Armand Towns, where he gives new life with a black analysis of McLuhan's work, it's even better, because I actually like what McLuhan does, even if we're approaching things from very different perspectives. And every semester I use, just as an just to introduce students to him, because we don't really spend that much time, I asked them to watch McLuhan's Wake, this great documentary that I think does as good a job as you can in exposing and introducing people to McLuhan's ideas. And now I'm able to have students watch our interview with Dr. Burrows and Professor Towns talking about McLuhan, but in the context of Black analysis, Black media, Black philosophy. So, but for some reason, I always forget to emphasize the very beginning of the documentary. So I remembered this semester, and I want to just show one quick clip of the documentary and what McLuhan is shown saying here as an introduction that I think is just always relevant when we start to remember the context in which we're talking about media and its function. So let me just play again. This is from 2002, but Kevin McMahon's McLuhan's Wake. I think it's already in the show description, the link, and if not, I'll make sure it's there. But it's a very interesting watch. We're just going to see a brief clip here.
Roger, roll, Challenger.
The huge vortices of energy created by our technologies present us with unfathomable consequences. Put a decent man in an airplane a few hundred feet above a village, and he will kill without compunction, inflict appalling pain and injury on men, women, and children. That bomber pilot is really very much like the person introducing any new technology. None of these people ever consider what will be the impact or the effect of what they do when they pull that trigger. We cannot trust our instincts or our natural physical responses to new things. They will destroy us. How are we to get out of the maelstrom created by your own ingenuity? Edgar Allan Poe has a story called The Descent.
And that was it. So what he does with Edgar Allan Poe and all of the European literature that he's I admit I'm fascinated by it, but it's somewhere else that I wanted to that I'm at least not intending to get into tonight. But just to briefly look at that approach that he is again equating the introduction of media into an environment to and the lack of recognition of what that does to the environment, to flying at great heights over a community and dropping bombs and not ever considering or knowing the in terms, specifically the impact of what you're doing. And I just think it's a great way to introduce or to start a discussion about media in this environment. And that if we don't become more aggressive in considering the environments we are in, that we're asked and invited to create for ourselves, we will be sort of participating in our own intellectual carpet bombing. And again, a point to which I'm going to return again a little bit later. So anyway, just wanted to, similarly, as a kind of just, I recently reposted a couple of discussions that I had years ago about 10 years ago, I think exactly, it's about the 10th anniversary, with Bob Rhodes. And he's a legendary figure in Black studies in a way, in the sense that he's well known to radicals and radical intellectuals in Black circles, and some white, but he didn't publish a lot, and because of his approach and his analysis was often, I think, easily moved aside. But because he worked with my father and my godfather at Antioch College once upon a time in the grad school that they developed there, I was introduced to him, albeit intermittently and late in his life. But we did, over a couple times, get to have a couple of interviews and discussions. And I want to play just a few minutes from a discussion we had, which was sort of impromptu, as I was in Chicago to talk about our A Lie of Reinvention book on Malcolm X. We were able to get to see him and the late Conrad Worrell, it was fascinating because Rhodes was a Marxist-ish type, and Worrell was a cultural nationalist, Pan-Africanist, but they were very good friends. And I got to hang out with them one afternoon, go get something to eat, and then talk, and then recorded a portion. And then he started talking, and I said, man, you got to let me. I said, can I please record this? He said, all right. So like the first half of the discussion is just something we started impromptu while I was waiting to go give my talk, and which was weird because it was like, we shouldn't be in the ante room in advance of me talking if you're sitting here. You know what I mean? It was like, but anyway, it was great. But in going back and listening to it with sort of my own older and newer ears of sorts, old but new ears, I was just listening to this little 3-minute clip I want to play, admittedly in a different way. But I also just want to encourage folks, if you haven't, if you're not familiar with Bob Rhodes or haven't had a chance to hear this, to definitely check it out. Again, the link will be in the show description. But I just want to play this. The audio is not great, admittedly, but because again, it was impromptu. But I think it's tough, and it's just going to be a couple of minutes and of what I think is a very interesting point.
That word advisedly, because ruling class calls all movement of the people populist movement. And populist should not movement be popular? Of course they should. But is that the same? But I know from studying, and I'm not the only one, that has never been a successful populist movement in history. Where a populism, because it's an effort, and a populist leaders have something in common with elitist leaders. They both have contempt for the masses that they lead. You're supposed to follow them. Now, the elitists don't even want you. The difference is elitists has contempt for the masses and try to demobilize them.
Right.
But the populist movement never developed their constituency. They want a band of followers. You know, and it gets to that question of revolution from above and revolution from below. And to answer the question sounds very complicated. You have to have revolution from above and below at the same time. Now, there's one thing to say that, but it's another thing to put content into that statement. But anyhow, I'm a professional, buddy. I don't want to flatter me. I know more about this than probably anybody. I've been at it 60-some years, and I don't let up.
Clearly.
I don't spend. I'm studying the Empire and Barbarians, the birth of European civilization, and the birth is like all these book chancellors, all of them are distortion. There were no Europeans in Western Asia.
Yeah, I could just keep going, but that was really the only part I wanted to play. But I actually really loved the conversation. But just this point that populist and elitist leaders are guilty of the same misuse of the people they claim to want to lead. That they don't want, and it struck me really in terms of where we are in today's world, where because of the way he said all they want are followers. And I know he wasn't talking about in terms of social media because it wasn't relevant to him at the time, but it really resonates that in this, what I think is still the aftermath of COINTELPRO in the form that it was in the 60s and 70s, we're left with a lot of disparate forms of leadership that do in many ways and too often mimic that I just want followers. I'm less interested in becoming an actual threat. So I don't know. It just really resonated with me when I was listening to it again. But there are so many gems in that almost 2.5 hours that we have there. And the second part is the bulk of it is actually a sort of lecture and an audio lecture that Mr. Tom Porter put together, so that Rhodes could really lay out how he approaches things. And it's I don't even think it's fair to call it a Marxist approach. It's I don't even know what you would call it, but it's a fascinating approach is what it is. Certainly there's materialism and class in there, but yeah. So please, if you haven't and just want a very well studied, different than we often get at least approach to these histories, check that out. Anyway, but I that part really stuck out. So, and speaking of absurd leadership, again, and so salute to we had a fortunate experience where our two daughters have had the same doctor, the same pediatrician. That's I couldn't think of the word. I just for a long time for their whole lives, and it's getting a little. She's getting older, and now they're about to age out of needing to see just her, and but I took one of the to see her the other day, and we go in and. I did know that once upon a time she would listen to my WPFW radio show, salute to WPFW. But we never in all these years have had any discussions about any of this. It's always been like a good vibe with her, a very good we always like her. It's just we've never really. But I go in and she's behind the desk with her staff, her nurses, her nursing staff, and it's clear she wants to she wants to talk. So she asked me, how am I dealing with everything? And at first, the way she, I thought she was talking about the weather, because I'm not used to being invited to having political discussions in those spaces. But she was like, no, about the political climate. And I said, and I forgot how but I give, I have a way of answering that lets people know, I try to let people know point where I'm going, but I don't really want to, So I gave her my little, but she was like, no. What do you mean? And I said, whatever I said, what I was trying to say was, I told her, I said, well, in short, I think we're in a terrible mess, in part because those who are claiming to be the representatives of the opposition never did anything. And they left us in this bad spot. And if the Democrats had actually ever done anything, this moment would not be possible. So, because I never just wanted to be, I just don't like the Republicans. That's just too easy. And she was like, yeah. And I could see that you could kind of feel the awkward tension in the room. Like the staff kind of like, this is not usually what we do in here. And then, and that was really it. She was like, yeah. She was like, yeah, she kind of was like, it was like, like I needed to hear somebody say something of something. But then I go home and, I watch, one of these, these channels, the Midas Touch channel that I think is now supplanted Joe Rogan as the #1 platform. And I see this from sort of the chief, the like the beds, the beds executive leadership, and listen to this is exactly what I was pointing to. Listen. I mean, this is almost perfect. Listen to what he says in response to this question about, could you imagine if I had behaved the way Trump is behaving?
Imagine that. Imagine if I had pulled Fox News' credentials from the White House press corps. You're laughing, but no, this is what's happening. Imagine if I'd said to law firms that were representing parties that were upset with policies my administration had initiated, that you will not be allowed into government buildings. We will punish you economically for dissenting from the Affordable Care Act or the Iran deal. We will ferret out students who protest against my policies.
Okay, so that's about all we need, and all that there's only so much that any of us can take. But what is fraudulent about that is that he set up, first of all, a straw argument. Because the real question, to the point I was making with Baby Girl's doctor, is if you had acted as aggressively on behalf of the politics people thought they were voting for you for, we would not be in the position we're in now. And maybe even people like me could be tricked back into supporting a Democratic Party candidate. In other words, if you had come in and, as you promised before you got elected, went full steam ahead for the Employee Free Choice Act, which he promised in 2008 he would support, allowing more workers to unionize, and then never mentioned it again for 8 years. If you had gone as hard for that as Trump and Musk are going at government employees and veterans and tariffing even islands with no humans on them, if you had done that, if you had actually not drone strike killed children, if you had redistributed the military budget so that everybody had actual health care instead of doing a Republican plan that Nixon types championed years ago and then rebranded Obamacare and guarantee by mandate private insurance, if you had done universal health care and said, you know what, everybody has health care, and if you don't fully give medical attention to anybody that shows up at your place of medical care, I'm going to use the full extent of my office to crush you. And if you don't like, if you don't like workers having $30 an hour minimum wage with full benefits and 20 weeks of paid vacation a year, then I'm going to make your life miserable. I mean, if he had done, that's what if he had, but no, instead he does the false stuff of saying, if I had attacked Fox News like they had, could you imagine? Of course they're not like you. Of course they're being more gung-ho for their politics than the politics you claim to represent. And yet, oddly, your house and your estate in Martha's Vineyard that you go home to after making these kinds of speeches is no less big than theirs, I'm sure. So this idea, but he does this for 4 years, and that's why I really appreciate what we did today on Saturdays with Renee on Black Liberation Media. Because we won't be part of the problem where at least, we're not going to offer up electoral options and different approaches until the last minute, have sustained conversations, because this is the sustained conversations the Democratic Party has. Rebrand why they don't ever do anything, and then just tell everybody how they're not as bad as the Republicans to get the vote again. And then we end up with, again, I literally said this in 2008, again, maybe not to a big audience, but I said, he's going to make it so we end up with something worse. And, we have to vote for Cynthia McKinney. We have to do something else. We have to begin to break the pattern, because all we're going to get is 8 years of that and then something worse. And then all he wants to do is act like, what if I was as bad as Trump? No, that's not the point. What if you went again as you were as vigorous in defending the version of yourself? If you really wanted to be Dr. King, as you alluded to in all your speeches running up to the election, then you would have said, we're going to go to the slums, like Dr. King said, and now that I'm president, I'm going to say, if you live in a project, if you live in a slum, send your rent check to this new office I've started. If Elon Musk can be head of Doge, then he could have created I don't know. I should have come up with something for that. But then he could have come up with an office that says, here's the office of no more slums, and you're going to pay your rent not to the private owner of your property, but to this office, and then this office with budget money that we're now going to take from the military and with our tax increases on everybody who makes six figures and above. We're gonna fund this slum thing, and we're gonna take that money, because like Dr. King said, I'm gonna complete his mission, and we're gonna take that money and hook up the projects. You get a new balcony, you get a new air conditioning, you get if he had said, you know what, he wants to pardon all these crooks, I'm pardoning Asada, I'm pardoning Mumia, I'm pardoning whoever's left in these dungeons. But no, what did he do? He raised the bounty on Asada. This is the con. This is the con. So I know we're good over here, but with all due respect to us and myself, this is what we're up against, because that is some, and the Midas touch that's playing that, by the way. This is the other point I almost forgot. They're the new #1 podcast that are better than Rogan, but they're not what we need either, because they're playing that as if to say, see, this is why we needed to have supported the Democrats. Like that's what they're not playing that to offer this criticism. They're playing that to say, see, and then he goes off and has this whole conversation. They're almost at 5 million subscribers, and salute. They do pretty good work, but not the work we need, and they're not the alternative that humanity needs, because they're still saying, they're pointing to that like that's something good. And I'm looking at him like, this is your fault. You could have made this moot or gone down trying. I mean, that would have been great to watch, and it still might have made it moot, even if you had tried and really run up against opposition that stopped you. But he didn't. So, by the way, speaking of what he didn't prevent, salute to the folks, at least the PSL version of the Hands Off Palestine and whatever rally that they're having. I know there's a more liberal version, but salute to and salute to the folks that are going to gather in Atlanta. I forgot the name of that one, for the one conference Geechee is organizing, and salute to those going to gather in Indianapolis and everywhere else. All these efforts are necessary. Even if there's a lot of stress with them, they're necessary. I mean, we're going to have to figure some things out. And per our conversation earlier today on Saturdays, I hope that there is a specifically suited for our politics approach to electoral politics that gets evolved. We got to come up with something where we're all on a broad, actual left to say, stop doing this. Stop. Enough of this, because all we, at least that's okay. All right. Okay. Let's move slightly along here. And I really, so when I was watching some of the stuff around Kanye, similar to what I've said previously, and by the way, I'll put the links in the show description too. Like if folks would really like to know more about what I actually think about Kanye and all that, and there's I'll put the links, and then you could even for those interested in becoming members to this channel, there's the We Don't Have Analysis of Jews video that I've kept there that adds to. And one of the issues that I bring up is that if you really want to have a conversation about Jews, Palestine, Black people, whatever, inviting Kanye to the party for the discussion is the wrong thing to do. Inviting professional athletes, with all due respect, is not the right thing to do. It's a setup so that we can always be kept in ridiculous forms of the conversation around all these topics. And to his credit, and I know he's been doing a lot of this lately, BillBurr, the white comedian, and I think maybe it's his Black wife, right? He's got a Black wife, right? That maybe she's helping him here. But I don't know his history and his comedy, but when I see him doing this stuff, it's hilarious. And on these podcasts, when he's calling, I see the clips of him going at Joe Rogan, it's hilarious. But he said he handles this exactly the way I would like to see more celebrities, entertainers, and athletes handle this when these things come up. This was I thought awesome. So he's on some presser for Conan O'Brien.
Tell us about your reaction to Luigi Mangione. I was reading up, that perhaps you've been supportive of what he did. What is your take on that?
If you were reading up, I don't think you read up on it. Because I said what I felt about it, and I said what a lot of people said.
Some people took it that way. So could you clarify what you think?
No, I'm not going to just have some controversial moment so you can get clicks. I'm not doing that. I'm here for Conan. I'm not doing all of this. What are you going to bring up next? The Middle East? I went to summer school 3 out of 4 years in high school. I'm not qualified to talk about this.
I was just going to read that.
What do you think about global warming?
You said about Elon that he was ruining Earth, I saw on The View. You're critical of him. What do you think of all the boycotts, like even the violence
I don't watch the news. I don't watch the news. I have no idea what's going on. I watch Instagram. I watch people wipe out on motorcycles. I watch lions and hyenas fight each other. This is the things that I do. And I don't think you should be asking a comedian. You're a journalist.
Comedians are on top of current events.
No. That's weak. That's you guys passing the buck. You guys need to have balls again, which you don't. You guys always goes, should we be thinking this? Duh. You guys present stuff like that. You guys used to have balls. You need to get your balls back.
Now listen, that's called my boy.
Yeah. I thought that was great. And that was a very short clip, but I thought that was great. That's exactly how it should be handled. Put it back on the journalists and their fake nonsense, and don't give them some silly viral moment when, especially, and I think he probably does have some good. What I've seen, he does have some awareness and some good things to say, but especially when you know this is not your lane, don't. Now, speaking of Luigi, I saw this and thought this was dope. That I don't know the status of this, but the best thing about the proposed California initiative named after Luigi Mangione is its title. The ballot proposition would effectively require health insurance to cover all treatments at any price. And apparently they're calling it the Luigi Mangione Access to Healthcare Act. That's pretty dope. And I hope it passes. And if I lived in California, I would advocate for it. And I don't know anything about anything that it's connected to, but I just love that there's an attempt to politicize I don't know about all that, about inviting BillBurr to the show. I don't know if he'd be interested in that, or if I could even reach him, or if I'd even, but that would be interesting. Maybe I will. You never know. You never know. Might be interesting to have a conversation about him, about all of this with him. All right. So now there was an update from KevinRashidJohnson that I thought I would get here real quick as well. Speaking of political prisoners, and shout out to Roberto. And let me just get this thing squared away real quick. And of course, let's see. I'm not sure what's going on here. Why am I not able to? Anyway, while I'm struggling with this real quick, please do like, share, subscribe. And if you think you're working on a comment, question, query, conundrum, catechism, cacophony, calumny, consternation, condemnation, I'll be coming back to the chat in a few minutes. But I don't think, for some reason, this is just not working. What happened here? That's very odd. Let's see. Edit. No. Close. But it's not letting me. All right. So we might have to try. Let's see if we can try this again. Was that all on the screen there just now? Anyway, the point that the issue here is what we got in this email from Victor Wallace, who is a supporter of KevinRashidJohnson, RashidMod.com for more. And I'll put the link to it, is a summary of recent articles posted on the website. And it's all regarding yeah, what is the issue here though? It's not letting me. All right, my bad. I don't know. So let's see if I can minimize that. And then if we open this here, because I would like to read this and let you all read along, then all right, at least get some of this up here. Although attack dogs have been routinely used in Virginia prisons for decades, since the early 2000s, it's only now becoming an issue of public awareness and concern. The subject has been receiving public attention through reports as the July 23, 2023 Insider article by Hannah Beckler titled "Patrol Dogs Are Terrorizing and Mauling Prisoners Inside the United States." The use of dogs in Virginia prisons was the main focus of this article because of the extreme numbers of uses of dogs in Virginia compared to other states. The Insider found reports of 271 dog attacks in Virginia prisons between 2017 and 2022, compared to the highest number during the same period, which was in Arizona, of only 15 dog attacks. In several recent articles, Comrade Rashid publicized numerous incidents of abuses of these dogs in Virginia and has initiated public calls to remove these animals from VA prisons. He also connected the subject of Virginia prison dog attacks with the widely unknown history of the uses of canines as weapons of racialized terror to mass murder and exterminate native peoples in the hemisphere, specifically the Taínos of the Caribbean, by the Spaniards to enforce slavery against blacks and track and often kill escaped slaves across the American South, especially in Virginia, to repress slave resistance such as the Second Maroon War in Jamaica, 1795 to 96, and the Haitian Revolution in 1795 to 1804, and to attack black civil rights demonstrators during the 1960s. So I'm going to invite folks to RashidMod.com and and maybe I'll put the link here so you can sign up for this listserv if you'd like, and then you could receive these emails yourselves. But as it says here, it is important that prisoners and our loved ones and supporters understand the history behind and laws governing conditions we live under, penetrate the lies used to falsely justify what is done to us, and make it seem just, and so we understand how we got where we are, the context of the conditions we live under, and how to legally challenge them. If you know other prisoners or outside loved ones, supporters, etc., interested in receiving these inside-outside Unity updates, please send us their names and numbers or email addresses via the return message here on JPay. So, also get outside people involved. Uproar, United People's Relatives Organizing Against Repression. Uproar. Send them to our IG page, Uproar Against Repression, or have them contact uproar-members at mayfirst.list.org. So I'll make sure all these links are available in the show description for folks if they want to get more involved or hear more about that. But and the link, of course, to RashidMod.com for more of the articles written by Rashid and his comrades. And salute to him and all of them. All right. Yes. Chitty Matcha, isn't VA prisons where 12 incarcerated black men self-immolated to escape horrific conditions? It is. And I think now some of these shows are blending together, but I think it was here last week that we brought some of that up, right? But yeah, that is exactly it. And Rashid was talking about it in one of his articles, for sure. So, all right, some more things to get to. So so much more needs to be done, and I definitely need to get caught up on some of the more recent literature on the subject. But whether it's in my classes or in these spaces or in what is kind of, it's not a flood, but a steady stream of emails and chat messages that I get regarding this subject. Not all of them friendly, not all of them comradely or principled, but often with this theme. And as I was telling some friends who I think take for granted a position on multiraciality, biraciality, the mixed race, et cetera, and so forth. I told them that for me, having these conversations or being asked or invited to respond to certain things happens all the time, because as I've been encouraged more recently to and I don't fully agree with this, but I'll acknowledge that there are folks who would prefer that I self-identify as a Black identifying biracial man, but who is often in Black and Black radical political spaces, and at least desires to be. This issue comes up all the time, and one of the things that is thrown at me often when there is a desire to demean me personally or those like me as a group are histories of betrayal of the Black Revolution by colored, mulatto, mixed race communities. So I know there's a lot more to get into, and I'm not prepared to do all that tonight, but I did share a quick comment with a group that I had been invited, that I actually shared somewhere else. But because in fact, one of in two different places, in two different contexts, with two different sort of political and I think principled purposes, reference to C.L.R. James' Black Jacobins came up, and this his specific section of the book where he talks about mulattoes betraying the Black Revolution. And as I've had some of these debates, even on Twitter, sometimes I've asked, I've wanted to ask without it being seen as me being defensive or what I don't think I am, someone who wants to avoid these things. But I want to have these discussions increasingly as I get older in very specific settings with very specific people. But I've raised the question, well, what is the data that suggests that, for instance, because C.L.R. James and others can point to very real, specific, and accurate histories where communities of so-called colored, mulatto, mixed race, et cetera, have worked against the Black community, or certainly a Black or African revolution. But how do we, in terms of data and analysis, extrapolate from that to say that that is evidence that an individual multiracial, biracial, mulatto, however we want to, half caste, whatever we want to call ourselves or be called, will themselves be more likely to betray the Black or African revolution? And to what extent can that be measured against, for instance, those within Black and African communities who are quote unquote fully Black or African, who are invited to neo-colonial positions of power, the Black bourgeoisie, or into class hostilities against the untalented 90th or whatever, and then, so, all right. So I just wrote this down and said, so something I forgot to mention to you all back during the mulatto discussion, and that has come up elsewhere, is that one flaw with how Jacobins and others similar work are used is that they ignore context and politics, certainly of today and what I'm talking about now. Mulattoes acting as a distinct community, class, or nation will of course be hostile to Black or African communities, and certainly revolutionary ones. The point is, how and why did they become made distinct? And how does that relate to today? their distinction or our distinction functions no differently than when a black bourgeoisie is selected for distinction and played against the rest. So the point should be to make the one drop rule revolutionary, resist the imposed separation, and then destroy all classes. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and I'll check back for your thoughts on that in a little bit. But I don't want to stop now because I want to make sure we get through so much of what else is still left. But just wanted to somewhat organize a thought there and share it, and I'm happy to have it be discussed more fully and correctly and thoroughly at another time, and with others helping, of course. All right. So also similarly, well, I guess I don't know. Actually, I don't know. Oh, this was something else. Sorry, this wasn't what I thought. Oh, wait. So I'm not doing that today? Oh, yeah, I am. Okay. Honestly, I forgot why this came up, but I know that somewhere there was some discussion or question about the concern with reports earlier this year that black men at HBCUs are a declining segment. And so I just pulled back up from January from our own president, David Wilson. Morgan State University forms a presidential task force to address decline in black male enrollment. In response to the alarming decline in black male enrollment at Morgan State University, Maryland's largest HBCU, and one of the nation's fastest rising research institutions, University President David K. Wilson has announced the formation of the Presidential Task Force on the State of Black Male Enrollment at Morgan. This initiative will examine the underlying causes of declining enrollment and retention of black males in higher education while developing actionable solutions to reverse the trend at Morgan and possibly across HBCUs. The formation of the task force follows the recent release of data from the American Institute for Boys and Men, which highlights a 25% drop in black male enrollment at HBCU since 2010, a rate exceeding the 22% decline seen across the U.S. higher education institutions. While Morgan State has continued to set record-breaking total enrollment figures, becoming the nation's third largest HBCU last fall, its percentage of black male students has decreased from 43% in 2015 to 37% in the fall of 2024, mirroring national trends. The issue has become a critical concern for President Wilson and the campus community, including students who have personally shared their concerns with him. And there he is hosting a forum, and I'm sure coming to all the right conclusions and responses. Now, as we've been talking about in my Black Studies class, this classic essay from Black Agenda Report would be even more of a concern for me than the decline in black male students at HBCUs, but a decline in the history, or a decline, or maybe a never allowed to rise tradition of protest at HBCUs. And this classic, so we've been reviewing this essay, and I thought I would just quickly bring it here, by Dr. Matthew Quest, A Concise History of the Repression of Black Protest at HBCUs. This is a really brilliant, and as it says, concise history. So yeah, and he starts off here, the thing about HBCUs are the toiling students fighting for justice on these campuses. Not the college presidents, board of trustees, the administrators, teachers, or coaches. It is the students who, under adversity of both institutional racism and the duplicity of some who minister to them, claiming to be role models, perennially rise above the nonsense and develop historical awareness of the dynamics of empowerment and self-reliance. HBCUs like to market themselves as having produced the student activists that form the modern Black freedom movement. This is a patriotic and conservative discourse in post-civil rights America. This is a really brilliant point. because they do. And even at Morgan, they have a display of the Route 40 sit-ins here in Maryland, where Morgan State students participated. But it's deployed in a very conservative and patriotic way, because again, it's deployed as we're here to save and build and protect our beloved country, but also to say that this was the form of protest that was acceptable under those specific conditions exclusively, never for you to be repeating in your time. And as he says here, Dr. Quest, this obscures how historically HBCUs have repressed students and calls for democratic accountability on their own campuses. The one thing you will not be permitted to do is oppose the Black college president. Oh man, that is again, one elder chair of a Black Studies department once told me, and that's very true. It's very true. And yet any struggle for democracy, majority rule must strive to take away power from the minority who rules above institutions in society, or such organizing is merely a cultural decoration. So then he goes through some of this important history and reminds us that a lot of the luminaries we think about were not welcome at HBCUs. Ida B. Wells was suspended for her anti-lynching work. Some recall W.E.B. Du Bois rebuking the administration of Fisk University, the HBCU he attended in Tennessee, in commencement addresses in both 1908 and 1924. When we look at selected correspondence of Du Bois, it is clear that in the 1920s, he inspired student strikes. Du Bois exposed the poor education of students at Fisk. Black college leaders wished to train subordinate and cheap toilers for their white benefactors. Sounds very much like what was said to me. Du Bois said, of all the essentials of a university, a university needs, money is the least. It needs teachers who will teach truth regardless of their personal fortune and learn from the student's environment. But students had to want to learn and put quality time on task. Instead, Fisk was choking freedom by embracing anti-Black propaganda that many had been working hard for years to discredit. So just again, I 100% agree. Even to this day, this is a major issue. We of course, everybody needs money, but the idea that Morgan or any other HBCUs needs money more than they need a redistributive, collective worldview and good teachers, that, in other words, that's what is needed. That is what is needed. But again, none of this fits into what Ella Baker, is recorded by Barbara Ransby, challenged rules at Shaw University in North Carolina. Langston Hughes completed a sociology project that found more than half the Black students preferred an all-white faculty. Hughes shared his findings with a prominent Black alumnus they were taught to admire. The alumnus told him, "Where would I be if I told the truth to white folks?" Hughes concluded that the historical disposition embodied in Harriet Tubman and John Brown was not aligned with that alumnus. According to Arnold Rampersad, Hughes found an obvious incompetency among many of the instructors at Lincoln. In 1930, Bayard Rustin had issues. 1935, there were national student strikes against the war and fascism by over 500,000 students. Thousands of Black students at HBCUs, including Howard, Virginia Union, Virginia State, Morehouse, participated. Most Black students supported World War II subsequently, as was called by the Black press, of course. But returning Black war veterans supported anti-racist and democratic struggles, with protests at Lincoln University and HBCU Pennsylvania being exemplary. Dr. King, when a student at Morehouse from 44 to 48, led a protest against poor quality of campus food. E. Franklin Frazier wrote the classic Black Bourgeoisie. His experience teaching at Tuskegee, the HBCU in Alabama, was clearly an inspiration toward his scathing critique. College president R.R. Moten told him not to be seen walking around with philosophy books on campus, for when the white college trustees come around, they might get the wrong idea about what was taught there. Ralph Ellison depicted the statue of the founder that appears to be removing the veil from a kneeling slave, but the author remarked he was not sure if the veil was being lowered more firmly into place, and that this perhaps embodied the true mission of the college. Yikes. That is talking about Tuskegee, the prototypical black college president. He said Booker T. Washington was the prototypical college president. In an older but valuable study of Amiri Baraka's ideas, Werner Solers notes that Baraka University, which he attended in the early 1950s and considered it a sick institution, which makes most Negroes who go there turn out bourgeois conservatives. Baraka did benefit from learning from Sterling Brown, whose black nationalist literary values stood out in an otherwise assimilationist environment. But didn't Sterling Brown get run out of Howard too? Claudette Colvin was a black teenager who really was the first not to give up her seat on the segregated bus. But the elites around Alabama State University, a Montgomery, Alabama HBCU, and Dr. King's Dexter Avenue Baptist Church would not rally around Colvin. She didn't keep her hair straight. Her parents were not seen as respectable. She had a teenage pregnancy and a conviction for assaulting a police officer. That should have made her the poster child of the movement. But so it's Max Stanford, Muhammad Ahmed, and Wanda Marshall of the Revolutionary Action Movement first became active with a student group in the 1960s called Challenge at Central State and HBCU in Wilberforce, Ohio. They became more conscious and radical as a result of their years of conflict with college administrators. The early 1960s activism of Alice Walkham in college is well known, though it was discouraged and repressed despite having support of Professor Howard Zinn. Before I read A People's History of the United States, I forgot what it's called. It's got the word Southern in the title, but Howard Zinn wrote a book about his teaching at black universities, where he said, what I remember him saying was that white radicals would only be hired at those universities, probably because they were looking for white professors to boost their image, but not knowing how radical they were, or maybe, I don't know. But anyway, that was interesting. And then as he talks about, and as I'm reminded here, he was ousted despite having the support of professors like Howard Zinn, of People's History of the United States, who was also ousted. She transferred to Sarah Lawrence College. H. Rap Brown, Imam Jamil Al-Amin, who Barack Obama could be working to pardon, in his memoir, Die Nigger Die, pointed out that the college president of Southern University and HBCU in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, had obnoxious respectability politics that chided black students about how to dress. That still goes on at Morgan State. From 1962 to 65, numerous sources show the expulsion and firing of black students and black faculty at many HBCUs for supporting civil rights disobedience. In late 1967, black administrators of Grambling University in Louisiana and Lane College in Tennessee called the police on campuses to quell black student protest. In 1969, there was a student rebellion at Morehouse College in Atlanta, led by the New Orleans-based Malcolm Subert, the later famous actor Samuel L. Jackson, and junior professor at the time, Gerald McWhorter, Abdul Al-Kalimat. They showed how they felt about the college president and board of trustees by chaining the doors to their meeting room, detained them, and insisted their demands were met. One of the board of trustees members was Daddy King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s father, who held the student activists in contempt, and they didn't care for him either. At Jackson State University, an HBCU in Mississippi, police fired on a group of students, killing 2 and wounding 12 others in 1970. Again, people remember Kent State. They don't remember Jackson State. And when they do remember Jackson State, even when they make the point that it was a black university, they don't make the point that it was the black university that called in the cops. Most former student activists do not become black college presidents or administrators, but the marketing departments and offices of institutional advancement like to show that HBCU graduates who attend there have a social justice legacy. Man. What experience of an all-black college has produced historically among the most brilliant black minds that have democratized world civilization, but peculiarly, not HBCU campuses, is radical awareness that black power means little if it doesn't mean power to the common people, even where blacks have already ascended to coveted positions above society. HBCU students have tremendous power and nobody dares to tell them. So, all right, everybody, please do like, share, subscribe. And put this in your socials, share. And if you would, do me the honor of holding tight for just a quick minute, quick break. And I will be back here in less than 60 seconds. So please don't go anywhere. Back in just a second. All right. Welcome back. Keep it right there with everybody. Wait a minute. All right. Welcome again, everybody, to our Mix What I Like. If looks like a few more folks have joined us. Peace, and welcome. Forgive me for the moment. I'm just going to continue to go through my little run sheet here, and then I'll dip it to the chat for comments, questions, queries, conundrums, catechisms, cacophony, calumny, and so on. A little bit more to get through here. So I'm not going to play much of this, and I'm just going to share this one quick clip, but I encourage people to check this out. It's the latest offering from CoffeeZilla, where he's talking about what sounds eerily like, to me, what could be potentially a threat to all these fintech, financial tech platforms, including the Greenwood Bank app, the Black Amazon app. Well, that's actually different, but we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And just quickly, if you remember, the Greenwood Bank app that was promoted heavily by Killer Mike and others, it was, Andy Young, of course. It of course is not a bank. It's sort of a gateway backed by, was it Coastal Carolina? What's the name of the bank that backs it? Backed by a white bank, which again, Coastal Community Bank. We'll come back to that also in a minute. But giving the sort of the veneer of a doorway of black ownership, black banking, some sort of benefit to Black people economically. But if you and he goes, there's a lot more detail to it than I'm going to be able to give to it. But this is this whole thing about what's going on with
name as well, as long as we
out.
remember that Synapse is not the name people trusted and that ultimately they're in bankruptcy and can't pay more than they have anyways. The reason ultimately customers trusted these fintech companies is because they saw FDIC insured slapped on the label and reasonably assumed that the regulated banks would keep them safe. And they absolutely did not. Not to mention, we can't forget about the regulators either.
We are not going to get a believable, satisfying answer about what happened here absent some kind of litigation or congressional. Basically, people need to be under oath answering questions or producing documents in response to subpoenas before we are going to have a true idea of what happened here.
All right, so the short of it is that, and I'll play, just check out what he's saying.
Today we're talking about a bank that won't let you withdraw your money. A bank where almost $100 million has vanished. Or has it? Because I've traced some of the missing funds, and I think some people are hiding the truth. Even worse, our regulators and safeguards may have failed us. Let me show you what I mean. Today we're talking to a bunch of people who found their money frozen in their bank last year. 6 months later, they started getting paid out, but some of the money is missing. Welcome to the Discord Diner. All right, let's start with the basics. What is your name and how much money did you have on your savings app?
Well, my name is Colin. My savings was $53,105.95.
How much are you getting back?
All right, so that's how he starts the video, and that's what and then I just played you sort of the conclusion where the people who invest in the fintech doorway of Synapse, which went bankrupt. No, Synapse it's Synapse and Evolve, I think the name of it. I thought it was in the show description here. But the point is they went through a gateway, much like Greenwood targets Black folks. There's the gateway, fintech gateway of Synapse and something else that invited people to invest in them. It was backed by the FDIC backed bank of Evolve Bank, right? Is that the name of the bank? Now, why doesn't he put this in the text of the thing? But it's not really his fault, of course, it's mine. And then people invested, and then the bank that was supposed to be backing the fintech gateway, money disappeared. And even the SEC and the FDIC and whoever else have not been able to force these folks to give the money back. So when I saw that, I thought immediately, yeah, Synapse and Evolve Bank, right? So Synapse was sort of the mechanism behind the scenes that helped move the money whatever. It fell apart. Evolve claims whatever they claim. You can watch the full video for more details. But the end result was that people who were invited to that gateway who thought it was protected found out later it was not protected. And I thought immediately of the Greenwood Bank situation because it's exactly the same setup. And which requires whoever goes through that app to trust that their money is going to be protected when if and when the fintech, in other words, if Greenwood doesn't do well, if something goes wrong with Greenwood, then investors are meant to be, confident that they'll get their money back because it's FDIC protected. So I just to go back and so from March of 2025, I was just looking at what is the latest with Greenwood Bank, and it launches new initiatives to boost spending at Black-owned businesses and expand access to loans for Black entrepreneurs following the announcement of Dave Cotter as new CEO. Because of course they had to get a whole bunch of new people to come in because it went through a whole bunch of problems, everything, as we've covered here and elsewhere before, but regurgitating the buying power mythology, the Black community has an enormous spending power of 1.6 trillion. And you see the number one here signifying footnote. Spoiler alert, it's the Selig Center. Yet only 2% of the wealth flows back to Black-owned businesses. By increasing this flow by just 0.5%, we could redirect an additional $8 billion into Black businesses. Our goal is to fuse technology with community, building a digital platform that automatically redirects spending to Black businesses, channels capital to Black entrepreneurs, and moves money into savings and investments to build wealth and a sense of belonging for the Black community. All right. So that was one of their latest claims. Now, why are they nope, that's not what I was looking for. Hold on. Nope. All right, forgive me. Let me just do it this way. One of the things that it revealed. So there are a number of players involved in this CoffeeZilla story, and one of the fintech gateways is this Yotta. Is called Yotta, and it is again much like the Greenwood Bank app, but of course it's fintech, not a bank. And as it says here in this story here from Forbes, in the world of fintech, the inner workings behind your favorite app or savings platform are often hidden from view. You sign up, deposit your money, and enjoy the promises of higher interest rates, gamified rewards, or easy payments. But what happens when the machinery behind these platforms grinds to a halt? The recent Yotta payout saga featuring Evolve Bank and Synapse, caught in a very public blame game, pulls back the curtain on just how fragile these partnerships can be. It's a situation where nobody wants to take full responsibility, and unfortunately, the users are left feeling the gut punch and holding the bag. So, again, there's a lot more to it, but the long story short is the fintech platform doesn't really have any money. And then if the bank that is in question or is supposed to be involved in backing it doesn't do the right thing, then then everybody who invests, as all of these folks, and he goes through those, a whole bunch of them lose their money or lose most of their money. And I apologize. The article I thought I was going to pull up that went over the history of Greenwood, that I don't know what happened to it, but I had it. But it was just a reminder, something we had already gone over, but it was just a reminder of that Greenwood is backed by Coastal Community Bank, which is a very white-owned bank. And that, and the story, the reason, I don't know. But the point was that the founder said, I had to go get a white bank because there were no Black banks big enough to do what we're trying to do. And that was the quote I wanted to show you real quick, but I've apparently lost it, so I apologize. Or I just don't want to, and I don't have it here, and I don't want to take the time to go struggling to find it. But I just thought that was anyway. So I just see a parallel there that even in regular white capitalism, the hustle is there, and Yotta is for them what Greenwood is for us. What there's a Latino version. There's all these fintech gateways, but behind them has to be a white bank big enough to back them, and then even then they may not be. It may not be real. So another reason to look askance, or at least more carefully, at this Greenwood initiative. All right, but so I just like last week, I found my algorithm bringing me to the Godfrey show, although his co-host Dante Nero, salute to Dante, although I didn't hear back from you, bro, after the last exchange. I hope to. I told you a couple weeks ago that Godfrey, the comedian, podcaster, and his co-host Dante Nero contacted me after we did the Lord Jamar thing, and I equated flat Earth to financial literacy after the Lord Jamar thing. Nero contacted me, and we rapped a little bit. He invited future conversation, and we had a conversation about a week. I don't know what prompted that exchange. I forgot how we ended up on the phone, and in the discussion he tells me, and by the way, it's about to drop, but we interviewed the dude from Black Amazon, the founder of the Black Amazon app, Black. And I said, all right. And then sure enough, it came up in my algorithm. I watched it, and I made it only 36 minutes in. We're not going to make it anywhere near that far tonight. Trust me, don't worry about it. Just a few minutes is all we're going to need. And I texted him back, and I said, look, honestly, what I said to him was, look, it would be great if Godfrey invited me for an interview, but I would be, if you all would just read the book, get the free version of the book. And I haven't heard back from him yet. So, but here's just the beginning of the latest episode about Black Amazon, and it doesn't take long. It doesn't take
Black Amazon.
You can Black. So now, wait, it's Black and Black Amazon. Black,
yeah, Black, aka Black Amazon. Yeah.
Oh, so it's the same. Wait, it's the same thing now.
App, or is
oh yeah.
We thought.
No. You can.
Just evolve Black into where you could sales.
So now you can buy stuff on Black.
Yeah,
okay.
But I mean, you can still find all of the. You know what I mean? All of the brick and mortars on here still too. Yeah. We just expanded it within. It's all in your pocket on the App Store and the Play Store right now.
And I said, John, you should come on the podcast because Black folks are actually doing some conscious shit. Where Target is going down, they're sinking, and it's
beating,
and we're not coming back.
But
no apologies from you, bitch.
You know what the thing is, and here's where the problem lied. Oftentimes, man, we would have someone, an unarmed Black man get shot. People get pissed off. We go to protest, right? But here's where, and I'm giving grace. So I'm not talking. No, I'm saying I understand if something happens and we say we're gonna move away from something, right? But there's nowhere else to go. I'm trying to provide an alternative to go. Yeah. Yes. So what I'm saying is the thing that's new about BLAP is instead of all that, like I said, toilet paper is selling on my app right now. So in the next 30 to 60 days, we will have everything from Black-owned baby clothes to liquor. Yeah. There won't be anything that you cannot find. So you got to offer somebody an alternative, though, instead of just pointing and screaming.
But when they're like, we're rolling back DEI, they're just everything towards Black people.
Right.
It's good that there's Costco, there's other stores. Those stores, there's other stores like that.
Right.
You understand?
Well, let me say
Costco's didn't roll back their shit, and people said, we'll go to Costco.
And they'll fuck with them. Yeah.
But I'm saying that, like we was talking about all of the racial slurs earlier in the show, right?
Yes.
And the difference between other marginalized groups and ourselves is, for example, right, Asian community, the dollar circulates in the Asian community for around 27 days. White community, 20 days. Jewish community, I think, is around 17 or 18 days. You know what it is for the black community?
6 hours.
Just under 6 hours.
God damn.
Right. The average person spends around just under 2% of their income on black-owned businesses. How are you going to get the car out of the ditch when you keep pointing here, there, not thinking about what you're wearing?
Yeah.
We live in a capitalist society. If you don't alter your spending habits, look what happened when people altered their spending habits with Tesla in 30 days.
Yeah.
We have $1.7 trillion in spending power. Do you know that if you put black people, if you isolated us from America, do you know that we would come in as the 13th richest nation on earth? Just black people. So imagine if everybody tonight said, you know what? I'm not going to wear a dashiki to work tomorrow, but I can buy something black owned. Start moving in that direction. Because by the time we at 2%, so I'm not knocking it. I'm saying, look at all the opportunity.
So in by 4 minutes and 10 seconds in, he has just already run through so many of the myths. And it's another 32 minutes of that is how far I got, and it's basically like a greatest hits of the revolution won't be televised, so because we're going to be using the app and shopping and circulating our dollar, and so there's a couple things. So I went and got the app, and I know he said in 30 to 60 days, but so. Again, no one asks him, where's your source for the buying power? Where's your source for the circulating dollar figures? Where is the data and evidence to suggest that any of this is possible? It would have the effect you think it would have. Let's look more carefully at the comparisons between a global and including state level resistance to Tesla, to black people not shopping at Target or shopping only exclusively through your app. There's no investigation of any of what these claims are, where they come from, how accurate. So anyway, but when you get the app, you can see. Well, I hope I can get it more clear. This is what's available. What you would expect. A few beauty products. Literally 2 books. Some skincare. Bicycles. I didn't see the toilet paper he said he bought. I didn't see it. And some fashion, including their own shirt, their own app t-shirt. You can get a couple things, get dog chain. You can't get pet food yet. I don't think there's a black-owned pet food supplier, but you could get, some art and some chains, and then some candles, and 1 book about financial literacy. It looked like it doesn't even have it doesn't even have a description that you can read. That's all you can get. So my point isn't to hate, but my point is to say, as we've argued before, there aren't enough black-owned businesses with enough products, with enough capability to scale to satisfy all of the consumer needs. Never mind what the actual wants, but just the basics of what we need: the toilet paper, the toothbrush, the toothpaste. There's just not enough. And those businesses cannot survive on the relatively small amounts of money black people have. So it's a catch-22. And why we always end up seeing some white bank in the background or some white investor in the background. He says himself that his biggest investors are white. I don't think in number, but the way he suggests, it sounds like his biggest investor is white, or investors are white. So this claim of independence is And then, of course, just because it's so readily available, I just went back and just as one example recently from 15 cents on the dollar, how Americans made the black white wealth gap by Ebony Reed and Joy and Louis Story. Their section here on the black dollar. The black dollar is a marketing term, pure and simple. The black dollar, an idea originally meant to tout purchasing power, is actually a mirage. It obscures the fact that the ratio of typical black families' wealth to a typical white family's wealth is a poor one, not a powerful one. Of course, they go into all the details. They happily, I admit, they reference my work and go through some other helpful things to point to this particular point, but specifically I wanted to go to where they talk about the circulating dollar, because again he cites these numbers with such authority, but like most people, that we are not encouraged to ask, well, where is all of this coming from? So it's a nice, concise summary that they offer here in this book about where does this come from, and they in fact talk about the Greenwood Bank, the Greenwood folks talking about the circulating dollar and the need for it, and then they wanted to look into the claims, and initially, Greenwood sourced the data from the Selig Center. And here it is here. Michael Render, that is Killer Mike, has cited similar figures, telling CNN in 2020, when Greenwood was announced, that a dollar circulates for 20 days in the white community, but only 6 hours in the black community. Where did you get that? We got that from the Selig Center. What? But then the Selig Center said, we don't say that, because they don't. In fact, one of the first things that I know, my own little bit of study into this, is that no economist anywhere of any political background talks about this claim. It is a non-existent fantasy myth produced and targeted specifically at black people here in the United States. It is super pernicious, and it is super unsupported. So even the Selig Center. Now, as I said, I really wish that Reed and Story had, since they were in contact with the Selig Center to ask about this, if they would have asked them about the buying power stuff. Like, why do you all keep concluding, as you would claim in your own reports, these estimates and projections are actual? How do you conclude that what is an estimate and a projection is somehow real? But then anyway, but in terms of the circulating dollar myth, they come back to saying, look, that it originally came from a book in the mid-1990s. We've talked about it here and on Black Liberation Media before. Talking Dollars and Making Sense, a wealth building guide for African Americans. We called the author of that book, Brooke Stevens, to ask about the recirculation figures. She told us they came from two businessmen she met at a conference in the early 1990s, and that they had done the recirculation study in Washington, D.C. in the 1970s. That's all the information she had on them. When we asked her if recirculating black money is possible today, she said, right now, there's limited opportunities for that. Duh. But nobody, listen, look at how the myth, where's the study? She didn't look it up. We went through her book. She didn't look it up. And just like I did with the buying power stuff, they asked the late now, unfortunately, somewhat recently passed William Spriggs, economist at Howard University, and said it's an urban myth. And he said the same thing about buying power. And when I quickly said to him on a panel one time what my thesis was, he was like, you're right. So there is no circulating dollar. There is no $1.7 trillion dollars in buying power. There is no such thing as black people equaling equaling some other country. And again, GDP is gross domestic product. GDP is not wealth or income. GDP does not measure inequality within a society. So these, and again, the same thing. It's, the debate with old boy at Industrial Bank. I mean, it's. So I really, really wish maybe Dante is checking out the book and is waiting to get back to me. All right. So super, super duper big salute to Jared Ware and Orasami Burton, who put me on to what I'm going to show you here in a second. And hopefully there's going to be much more excitement to come from all of this someday. But I'm pretty sure I already put the link to the citation for this, where you can get this in the chat. But this right here from the National Defense University, Cognitive Warfare, the Fight for Gray Matter in the Digital Gray Zone. And folks, this will be the last story of the evening. So if you do have comments, questions, queries, conundrums, catechisms, cacophony, calumny, consternation, condemnation, confrontation, collaboration, please start to recycle the stuff and get yourselves, so we can, chop it up a little bit before I head off to bed, really, because it's late. But this is and really, and I'm not going to do this justice. So you got to check out the discussions of all of this on Millennials Are Killing Capitalism. You got to hear when Jared and Ori get into this and other things like this and other stuff. But I've added it to my syllabus in my class this semester. We're going to have to, but Cognitive Warfare, the Fight for Gray Matter in the Digital Gray Zone. And this is, again, coming from the United States National Defense University and written by Lieutenant Colonel Michael Cheatham of the U.S. Air Force, Deputy Director of the Joint Staff Security Office, Commander Angelique M. Geyer, Chief of Operational Planning Section, U.S. Coast Guard, Lieutenant Colonel Priscilla Knoll, USA Future Warfare Strategist at NATO Allied Command Transformation. So in other words, this is where this is coming from, okay? But this is why we can't be. This is why we need the Vernon philosophy. This is why we need much more militant, critical media analysis and be ever vigilant. As they say here, the sphere of operations will expand from the physical domain and the information domain to the domain of consciousness. The human brain will become a new combat space. Cognitive warfare degrades the capacity to know, produce, or thwart knowledge. Cognitive sciences cover all the sciences that concern knowledge and its process, psychology, linguistics, neurobiology, logic, and more. Cognitive warfare is therefore a way of using knowledge for a conflicting purpose. In its broadest sense, cognitive warfare is not limited to the military or institutional world. Since the early 1990s, this capability has tended to be applied to the political, economic, cultural, and societal fields. Message: any user of modern information technology is a potential target. Woo! So they're saying, just out the gate, we're not playing around with people's minds. Consciousness is not a game. This is warfare, and this goes far beyond the military or institutional world. This is everywhere. This is meant to be political, economic, cultural, and in all areas of society. The use of cognitive warfare to target a nation's human capital highlights the growing threat vector. Cognitive warfare aims to create cognitive emotional conflict by influencing a target population targets population's thoughts and values using technical means and information. Now, as you see here, they're talking about the context. This is written with the idea that Russia and China are doing this to American citizens, and this needs to be guarded against before American citizens can be sort of softened and turned against their own interests by the Russians and Chinese. I think we would be foolish to not think that this is, of course, being done to Russians and the Chinese, and of course, per the work we've covered here a lot, Chris Simpson, Sasha Levine, and others, the same things are being done to us. Black people specifically, but others here in the US. Everybody is getting this work. They're concerned about the brain's tendency to accept disinformation as a risk. How confirmation bias can be exacerbated and used to manipulate us. Saturation tactics with sticky information, familiar topics, and partial truths establish priming conditions for new shaping narratives to take hold. Russia and China are weaving these cognitive warfare tactics into their doctrines and are using instruments of national power to target the U.S. military and civilian populations. That's right. I also forgot to mention they're also particularly concerned in this article for U.S. service personnel who might be manipulated. Offensively, U.S. Cyber Command maintains operations in the technological and human domains through information and psychological operations functions. Message. The approach advocates for gray zone military operations to deliberately cloud the understanding between Russian and Western definitions of war. So it says here, Russia's disinformation warfare aims to avoid kinetic operations by masking attribution tactics such as posing as U.S. organizations or as individuals within the information and cyber domains to create a gray zone, to confuse us. By posing as U.S. organizations and manipulating us with redefinitions of war and combat and freedom and economic. You could see how they lay all this out. Cognitive security, defense, psychological and technological, biological and technological. And to prioritize investment here to promote cognitive defense, critical thinking. So we should do the same. Cognitive bias training, connectedness, news media literacy, all to prepare us not to be manipulated by the Russians and the Chinese. And then offensively, produce something similar. The Havana syndrome, remember that? Attack morale and motives of the enemies, create narrative, control narrative in social media. So by the way, so that would suggest then if they're saying that there needs to be a defense against Russians and Chinese perpetrating to be someone else to promote a narrative, then conversely, we would have to think that offensively they're doing the same thing to manipulate the rest of us as well. Just some more of the ways that this is all engaged. You can see them in, they're studying and creating the digital gray zone to destroy the moral factors and drive the ability to resist. To destroy the moral factors that drive the ability to resist. The brain operates in a neurosequential and iterative input interpretation output loop. The loop supports predictability and certainty in the individual's interpretation of the world, increasing the odds of survival. However, disinformation creates a low-resolution understanding of what is occurring in the environment and how to respond. Naivete in the cognitive warfare problem predisposes individuals to increased cognitive dissonance, which can express itself in unpredictable ways such as anger, disillusionment, nihilism, and sometimes self-harm. So again, you could see this working offensively and defensively. You could see them saying we need to defend against this, and we also need to cause this in our enemies. And again, I just love how they're very clear. Social media, this is a war zone. Like this is not, I'm going to go out here and tweet tweet the revolution into existence. Maybe, but it's also definitely being used as a space for the exact opposite in a very organized and clear and well-resourced way. In the recommendations, they say recent research indicates that individuals with high levels of political awareness and digital savvy are harder to penetrate mentally by narrative-based cognitive warfare. So therefore, what we're doing here critical media literacy, political education, talking about the tech, being tech savvy, digitally savvy. We're creating our mental armor, or as the formerly inspirational Public Enemy used to say, our mental self-defensive fitness. So we need critical media literacy. Saturating the information environment with disinformation can produce information learned helplessness. Like when you tell people to be financially literate. Salute to Renee, Geechee, Max Haven, or and future Dr. Erica Brown. And what it's usually said of me in the reverse, but I think that the actual learned helplessness is Black capitalism. It's an encouraged psychological warfare, cognitive warfare weapon. Conserving a strong narrative as a center of gravity. So they're very clear. Cognitive is about cognitive warfare, dominating narratives to reduce the need for what they call a kinetic efforts, that is putting boots on the ground. Let's win without putting boots on the ground. And, just another salute and shout out to the fact that we've been on point with this for a minute. That's why we have the introductory critical media literacy video mixtape. Who are the 3 people that put the thumbs down on that? Identify yourselves. How dare you hate on my introductory critical media literacy video mixtape? But that's why So, all right, good people. Let me jump back in the chat before we get out of here. Are there any comments, questions, queries, conundrums? If anybody wants to even join me on the whatever, I could put the link in the chat. Don't have to rush off this evening. Get rich, buy black, get the bag, balloon popping, women bad and good, men bad and good, all distractions dumbing folks down. That's what I'm talking about, Yipper. Put your name on it. Salute to you. Hater extraordinaire. Who could be mad at that? Hey, but they put their name on. I'm not mad at that. Identify yourselves. Renee put the thumbs down. Wait, what happened? You said Renee. Oh, that was Amber. That's right. It wasn't Renee. My bad. Salute to Amber, Geechee, future Dr. Brown, and Max Haven. You're right. Absolutely. For that one. Poncho, man, I haven't got the book, man. We just approved a class called Leadership in Media and Communication, which is a cross-listed class with communications and media department. I was the only one to vote no. Why would you vote no? Leadership in media? Do they really think Russia and China are putting this much effort, or making the assumption because it's what they do? That's a good question. I know all I am assured of is that they are doing it. I don't know if they believe that the Russians are doing it too, but listen, I don't doubt that other countries try to spy on the United States or influence the United. I don't doubt that there's some effort to do that, but you're right. I think and that's why, what for me is, when I read that, I'm not reading that as if I need to worry about what the Russians and the Chinese are doing. I'm worried about what they're doing. And so that's how I read it. So yeah, every time they say we need to stop the Russians from doing this, I'm assuming so that they mean so we can be more effective in doing this. Oh, military studies and communications. That's wild. Is addressing these myths about Black buying power simply to name how terrible the economic condition of Black people is and not to blame ourselves for our condition? So one of my goals is to, there's several goals. And one of them is that the myth is designed to have Black people blame themselves for being poor. So I do want to smash that or help smash that. And it's also then to say, so if correctly you're not the reason you're poor, then what is the reason for it? Well, then we have to have another conversation about the economy. So that is my point. And what I'm saying is, like, when I played the clip from Godfrey, this is how I see the myth working. It sounds great. It sounds like a positive Black effort when Godfrey says on the podcast, listen, Black people are doing some things. I understand the idea. Black people want to be seen doing it. Black people want some things to happen. Black people need some things to happen. So when someone shows up and they're saying, I got a Black app and I got Black business, and then, it's already feeding into existing messaging from all quarters, then again, well-meaning people. I'm not at all saying that everybody is a hustler and a fraud and this, that, and the third. I'm saying even well-meaning people get caught up in it. And then in so doing, we don't take the time to learn how the economy works and make an appropriate response to that. So it is really frustrating to me, it feels entirely unavoidable that everywhere I go, even when I'm going to a podcast or even when I end up in a space where I think I'm just going to chill and have some fun watching some silliness, here comes the nonsense. And it's so easy. And again, look at how rarely it happens. No one says, where are you getting this from? Where does that come from? Wow, teaching kids to make propaganda for empire. That's deep. So this is this is the attempt to do Hasbara here, teach people to propagandize the settler colony. That's deep. Yeah, it's not always malicious. I think in many ways most people are not meaning to be malicious. They're not trying to con their own people. They're like, I'm not saying the Black Amazon dude. I'm not saying anybody. I'm not impugning any of their intent. I'm in fact giving them grace, as he kept saying throughout that interview, which is, but I'm giving them grace, and I'm just saying, they're caught up in, and that's why I was like, please, and I know how it sounds when someone you barely know is texting you saying, please read my book. But I'm like, I don't know what if you, or why I even said, watch the videos, just watch or whatever, but so, like, I didn't want to phrase it this way, but I kind of was feeling like, I know I don't have the platform size that Professor Dave has, but if you're willing to question flat Earth, which I am equating to financial literacy, and invite Professor Dave on as an expert to challenge Lord Jamar, I wouldn't even say that I'm as much an expert in my field as Dave is in his, but I'm like, if you're willing to do that, why not have a conversation of sort of equal merit with this? Because again, I do think financial literacy is the equivalent to flat Earth. Financial literacy is to economics what flat Earth is to science. It is a complete assault on logic and history and science and data and everything. So it would be nice if they would look at the I did say, I said you could get the free, I was telling him you could get a free copy the first, you get, I said to him in the text, get, the book is free, the videos are free. But again, it's not smoke. It's not smoke. The first edition is free. You can get it at imixwhatilike.org. In the book section, there's a link, and and it take you to Springer, Paul Graves' imprint, and you can and download the PDF. Which, to their credit, they said they wanted to offer for free after the George Floyd killing took place, and I, of course, said great. Now, the second edition, you can get, for a few dollars at the QR code here, if you like. But no, get the free copy. I told you, get the free copy. Now, so to your point here, it's not smoke per se, but it is true that my argument does go at some core beliefs, some core ideological political beliefs, and it might. That's why I've said it might create a situation where even included research in the book that speaks to this, that people cannot. They will receive it as smoke, And then as I mentioned in a video not too long ago, when I went back and looked at E. Franklin Frazier, again, shout out to Double O African Community for reminding me of this. Frazier explained it too. Like, what happened to him was way worse than what happened to me. His book had a much bigger impact on Black audiences, but it was a similar thing, that the Black bourgeoisie, the Black capitalist community, the entrepreneurial community had a lot of smoke for him. And because their sort of core foundational beliefs are being challenged. So thank you very much. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. I'm cool with this too. What's up, sir? Get the free copy and then be a Patreon. That works, But I'm more interested in people just, I'll get my couple of pennies of royalties here or there. That's fine. But I really want people to read the book. So that was I don't think I'd help him with the ratings. I don't think my presence there would help with the ratings unless there was some big beef that they could I don't know, thumbnail into some clickbait. But I don't think I don't think it would be about ratings, but it would be about if I'm thinking of it as I care about my audience. I want my audience to have an opportunity to be as informed as possible. And I get it. Professor Dave coming on to do Lord Jamar beef over Flat Earth is gonna get way more numbers than a more or less unknown scholar with a book that most people have not read and don't want to read. So I don't know about the numbers, but it's this, if we have this 6 degrees and Nero reached out, I'm like, let's, I'm not selling myself short. I'm not. I really am not. I think people, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like because in these spaces, people are used to people bragging all the time. I'm not. This is not false humility or self-deprecation or none. It's objective. A lot of my videos get yellow warnings on them, meaning the algorithm and the advertisers on YouTube don't value the content. A lot of the videos here on Black Liberation Media, they do okay, but they're not breaking the internet. So I'm clear, like where you know, and so algorithmically, click wise, numerically, the numbers aren't big. And then when you talk about Professor Dave, who was what, like 3-4 million followers, and Godfrey's, you know, 100, 200, I don't know, thousands, whatever, you know. This is funny. The only beef I eat. That would be funny. They sell my book at Sankofa? Really? Who knew? It is. Oh, by far. The most social media attention Dr. Ball probably got was critiquing Beyonce, and yet again, people missed his point. That is, nothing has ever come close. Like when you see other people you know, even just recently, like Kamal or even Two Black. Kamal has way more followers on Twitter than I do. Two Black has fewer, but both of them get interaction on Twitter way more. At least in some recent posts that I've seen, they get way more interaction than when I post something. So I'm used to not getting a lot of attention on social media, and it's whatever. But when I did that Asada picture next to Beyonce, instead of if Beyonce's revolutionary, it was Asada, that I wasn't ready. I'm not even going to front. I wasn't ready. The attention was too much, and most of it was wildly hostile, overwhelmingly, like violently hostile. You know, just below overt death threats, hostile. I don't really tweet that much, and it's usually just to let folks know a show is coming out or something like that or whatever. But you know, I don't. And it's not, but again, I appreciate that, but I'm not stopping myself from, like, it's not like mainstream or whoever is inviting me and I'm saying no. Hey, I'm not going to, I tell you what, it would have to be virtual though. I'm not showing up into a space physically with Willie D. Because I have no army. I want no smoke. But I would virtually, I would be, you know, generally I don't feel like I should talk to people who talk to me or about me quite like he did, but I would probably accept the invitation. Usually I accept most invitations. I rarely turn down an invitation unless I physically cannot do it. Yeah, I get it. I get it. I get it. You know, I guess I'm happy they're at least selling the book. You know. Hey, I feel like opening the link. Would anyone be interested in discussing ideology compatible with revolution? If you feel like opening the link, would anyone be interested in? Are you asking me to put the studio link out there? Ray Johnson? Oh, you had to order it from Sankofa. Okay. All right. Well, that makes a little bit more sense. Yeah, that is, yeah, they got a kick out of that. I still get joked about that. They like my daddy's a micro influencer. They have fun with that. I'm not gonna lie, it's cool when people say nice things to you in front of your children. It's good. I like to it's good that they get to see their fathers appreciated somewhat, you know, outside the house. What's up, Quaker anarchists? Aren't our revolutionaries telling you to be ready? Got to prepare. I'm not sure if I understand the context, but I really didn't know the hive was coming out. I just didn't understand. I really didn't. And then, like I said, I'm used to not being paid much attention. So I just figured a few people would get a kick out of it, and that would be that. I'm dead. Yeah, that's definitely Black Queens forever. So you are saying, do you want me to drop? I mean, yeah. Do you want me to drop the link to the studio chat for you to? Here it is. Well, here it is. If anybody wants to join me up here, I got to develop a charismatic internet personality. I don't have one. Oh, you weren't ready. Right. I got you. Yeah, right. I got to be ready for the beehive, for the bayhive, however you say that. Snow bunnies never. But this is always my point. If political prisoners had the support of Beyonce wouldn't be Beyonce. And that's the conundrum, that we can always want them to do more, but the reality is, if she ever was to really do anything positive or speak positively about political prisoners, she's out of here. So we're not going to see that. All right, Ray, what's up? What's up, Ray?
Hey, what's going on, Dr. Jab? How you doing, man?
I'm as good as could be expected. How are you?
I just as well, man. Good as could be expected.
Right on.
Yeah. So I just wanted to jump on real quick because I read this book once that said that, I think it was called Decolonizing Wealth. And this guy proposed this idea where he said that indigenous people believe that they belong to the land. And from my understanding, that feels like antithetical to Western ideology, the Abrahamic religions, that the land belongs to people. So the thing about your book that was interesting to me, the conclusion that isn't really talked about enough, the actual way to fix the issue is to take the GDP, or take a portion of the GDP, and basically recycle that money into more robust poor services. And I hope I'm gonna tie these ideas together effectively. But basically, the general idea that society should be built around building up the rich, but also maintaining the poor, as if everybody's equal. You know what I'm saying? Like it's stated in the preamble to the Constitution. So I guess what I'm saying is, we have this idea of God as being above and over us, and being a male who created the universe with parts, as opposed to a female who gave birth to everything that's here. And the underlying idea of God being a female that gave birth to everybody would be that we're all siblings, which would mean that nobody should be just considered valuable and others considered unvaluable. You know what I'm saying? I hope I'm
So if I understand what you're saying, let me see if I follow what you're saying. So as I heard what you're saying, if we went back to sort of the original, because if I remember, history that at all, the first deities were women. So if we went back to the original form of seeing, and then that would give us a better appreciation for our relationship to other people and to the earth itself. And therefore we would be able to see better the conclusion I was trying to argue in my book, which you had a little bit slightly. I wasn't even being that specific. I was just simply saying, if we're being taught that 1 point whatever trillion in buying power it could save us, and I'm showing that number is in fact not real, mythological, and itself a marketing scheme,
right?
Why not then we focus on what is now said to be 27 trillion in GDP, which is actual, which is real, which is in the sense that any of this is, but has something more material to it. And then say, if we redistribute that, then there is no need for anybody to be arguing about how we consume, save, do whatever. And ultimately what I'm saying without saying it, which is, I think, a flaw in my argument, because I should have just said it, is that we would have a socialist society, because that's ultimately what I'm just saying, that the wealth that we're producing, that GDP would be distributed in such a way that nobody needs to be the best business person or the perfect consumer or be financially literate to have everything that we need. So that's more to my point. So again, if I understood you correctly, if we go back to deifying or conceiving of our deities as women, will have a better relationship to each other, to the earth, and be better prepared for socialism.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, yeah, that is exactly what I'm saying. But I feel like the way we use our GDP right now, the way we use our economy is to basically to build bigger monuments, to build bigger towers, bigger, to care more, to care more for the rich, because we have this idea that the rich people, like you argue very well in your book, that we care so much about bigging up the entrepreneurs that we end up shitting on the consumers, where like you said, without the consumer, the economy falls apart. And much like, everybody knows that when the economy shuts down because people can't go to work, like during COVID, we realize the veil is lifted. We need the consumers. If the consumers don't consume, then the economy all falls apart. So let's give just a couple of dollars to the consumers to keep revolution from happening, or sorry, to keep violence from happening, because violence is a necessary revolution. But at the same time, with the other hand, the powers that be, they give all this money to the wealthy. And I'm saying that the reason that it's so, I don't want to say acceptable, but I guess I can't think of a better word at the moment. The reason that people just kind of accept it begrudgingly is because of our view of God, which is, like I said, the idea of this gentleman that sits high on the throne, and we want to big up to him, as opposed to honoring the fact that we all come from I don't know where, and we all end up in the dirt. I'm just saying, I think it's because of our ideology. That's why it persists.
No, I agree. And again, so that's why a lot of my focus is on the propaganda that shapes the public opinion and creates the ideology that and allows people to believe and support all of this. And then, so yeah, I fully agree. I might prefer a situation where we don't need to have any deities, women, male or not. But either way, I wouldn't be mad at that. If we deify women and pray to women, and that leads us to socialism, I'll be good with that.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? That all was the buildup, because here's where I have an issue, though, right? Because from what I see, and I really hate to use the word leftist, I really think more revolutionary. I feel like when I listen to, or the people that I listen to and admire, like yourself, like a few other people, I find that atheism is really popular, right? And I get that because religion seems to have been introduced and developed in order to be used as a counter insurgency tool, right? I read this book once called The Great Cosmic Mother, which I've raved about, but it's kind of hard to do via comments, where this lady basically spells out the idea that religion was developed to undermine the evolution of humanity. So the problem with atheism, or better yet, the problem with atheism is kind of equal to the problem with the religious fundamentalism, in that we've come up with this idea of evolution, and when it's talked about in common stance, right? I don't know the better word. Like the layman idea is, people come from monkeys, so why are there still monkeys? And like that sounds kind of stupid because that's not what it actually says. What it says is that we have a common ancestor with, primates, with not other primates, but what I'm saying, with specific monkeys. Like we all kind of come from the same life force. And if you follow the timeline back far enough, it literally says all life comes from one cell, basically, right? That like, consistently evolves and creates new machines in order to stave off death. So my thing is, or my question is, why is atheism the ultimate escape from religion, when what the religious argument against evolution is that, what do you mean there's no designer, right? Because evolution, the idea is that life is perpetuating itself with no authoritative designer, separated from the process. When what the theory of evolution is literally saying is that we are all sharing the same life force, which seems to me psychologically compatible with the idea that we're all brothers and sisters. You know what I'm saying? Like
I think so. So first of all, unfortunately, this is way beyond what I'm capable of and what we have time for. And there is somebody else waiting to come up here. But I would just say very quickly, so one, we didn't just come up with the idea of evolution. Evolution is a tested and studied science.
Right. I meant discovered, more like we discovered gravity. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
But also that atheism. So I'm just following my atheist debates channels on this, and I like how they argue it. Atheism is only answering one single question, which is, is there sufficient evidence for the claim of God? And atheism is saying no. It isn't even necessarily saying there can't be a God. It's just simply saying, although some atheist forms do say that, but it's saying there's no evidence. So if I understood your point, the goal, the value of atheism is that it gets us back on a focus on science and materiality, and allows us, even as Malcolm said, to put religions back in the closet so we don't have to fight over them, focus on the matter at hand. And then adding to the atheism, because atheism in and of itself does not guarantee good politics or good humanitarianism. We focus on the science, and then, to the point about economics, scientifically create a socialist society based on this, I guess, humanitarian goal that I think you're pointing to with your regression back to the one of that evolution gives us, that we're all.
I don't think I think we're on the same broad strokes, but I don't think I'm really articulating what I'm trying to. So let me try this again, right?
So
the atheist ideology, I'm talking philosophy. The atheist ideology, what it actually undermines is the idea of a deity that we call God that is separate from humanity, right? And I feel like ideologically that draws parallel to the idea that, we used to say the man back in the 70s or whatever, but that's not really parlance these days. Now we just say, oh yeah, the white guys. And we think about the folks up on Capitol Hill who have authority that we just don't question. And I feel like that's a compatible thought process with thinking of, there's a God up on high. But what the atheist mind state actually does is it undermines the idea of there being a God on high. So I think that's why leftists and revolutionaries are more predisposed to fighting against, or like letting those people who currently have all the power, all the money, exist in autonomy like they would want to, because we don't believe in an outside authority. I don't even know if that's an important.
I think I see the parallel, and I think I understand your point, and it makes sense that the man was a term meant not specific to white individuals, but the state, the apparatus that holds down the Black community. And if you look at that scientifically, you don't need to mystify it and turn it into an Illuminati and all this other stuff. You can see what it is as it is, and learn how to undermine it and take it down. So I'm with that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's important. It feels important to me. Like clearly throughout this conversation, so I wish I was more talented at like talking about this, but
So what I'm thinking is, just because a couple people have filed into the chat, and now I'm seeing that this I don't have the energy to go.
It's cool, man. I'm a follower. Go for it.
I appreciate this. What I think I would like to do one time is just schedule that we just have the whole time for this, and then we could just start with folks joining me, and we could just build on stuff, because I wouldn't mind. I don't mind doing that. Especially for something like this, I would love to get into it, but I just don't have. I'm starting to feel the energy fade, and then I see other people have.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving. I appreciate the time. I really do. I'll be around.
I appreciate you.
I'll be back. I wanted to. I guess I need feedback on whether or not this is a like valuable idea that people want to hear about. And you saying you want to come back to it? That's great honor for me. I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, I definitely do. I just want to be able to get more time. So thank you very much, Ray. Appreciate you.
Big fan. It's been an honor. You be safe, man. Peace.
No, likewise. Have a good night. Peace. You too. Peace. Thank you very much. Just real quick before the Warren, the atheist debates channels I watch get this all the time. What would evidence of God even look like? And my favorite answers that they give is God would know. If there is a God, this God should know what I need to believe, and then it should be, this God should be able to deliver it. So my thing is, I don't know. I don't need to know. If he wants me to know, as they say, if God wants me to know, he should know what evidence I need and give it to me. Boom. All right, Dre, you up next. Welcome, Dre. Dre. Oh, damn, my bad, Dre. All right. Eves. Hold up. Go ahead, Eves. My bad. Go ahead. Welcome. Are you muted, though? I don't hear you. No, I don't hear you. Why don't I hear you? Wait a minute. Did I do something? No. Your volume's up here. It's at 100 here. But I don't hear you. You're not muted, so I don't see why I don't hear you. What? Ease, what's going on? I don't hear you though. What? Oh man, all right. I'm gonna hold tight. I'm gonna let Dre pop back up here, and then we'll come back.
Yo, what's up? What's up, Dr.
What's up?
Jab?
How you feeling?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
As good as could be expected.
Yeah, I still haven't gotten a hold of your book, but I told myself I'm gonna get it on this next adventure to Thailand. But I just wanted to say, like, to that dude's point about like God and stuff. So I'll quick, like 5 seconds. I went from going to Catholic school like every motherfucker in Harlem did, to being disenchanted by the thought of what God's supposed to be because it wasn't making a lot of sense to me, to falling out of that to now being a revert into Islam and to still questioning things. So for me, oddly enough, the way I understand God, it happened through an acid trip. I was on acid. Yeah, I was on acid. I was sitting in a parking lot and I was watching the sun reflect, like the sunlight refract off of the parking lot ground and go back and forth and back and forth. And then I had like an epiphany. And it was that there's a few iterations. Well, there's a few ideas I think of God, but the one that I came to at that moment was God just is. It's not benevolent, it's not evil, it's not anything. It just is a source of energy that creates things, and we are supposed to be a reflection of said thing. And we keep trying to figure this shit out, and nobody has figured it out. We're nothing more than ants with iPhones, and I would argue that ants are more complicated than humans are and got it together better than we do. But we're just constantly trying to figure this shit out. You die, and then they say energy is neither created nor destroyed. So where it goes, I don't know. Don't have the answers to that. To add to that, I've had multiple near-death experiences. The last one was going to a seminar with a couple of my friends. One of my friends ended up getting us into a car accident where we flipped off of the road, almost crashing into a tree. But luckily, since we hit like a divot, we only rolled twice. But when we was about to crash into oncoming traffic and then veer off, we all screamed like, "What the fuck?" I think I died for a second because all that happened was everything was black. It looked like I could see stars, and I saw a hand reaching out to me, and it was really warm, and I was about to accept the hand. And then my friend was like, "Dre, you alive?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then I woke up, and then I had to kick the window open, and we climbed out the car. And nevertheless, that ended how it did. But to me, that's my understanding of God in that one instance, is that it just is, and we're supposed to be the ones figuring this shit out, and humans just keep fucking it up. The other one I had was, I was talking to a friend and was just telling him that God could possibly be a sentient thing, and people who not know better than us, but in better positions than us, have God locked up, and we can't get to God. So that's why anytime you have those little moments of like feeling like God's blessing you, but not blessing a baby that's being born, whatever that's supposed to mean, that's like God trying to reach out to you. So it's God locked up. That's the other one. And then the third one is like the one with like the Greek gods and African gods, where there's multiple. But again, that's just me just going all over the place as far as just like thinking about what God could possibly be. But when it comes to tying God in with capitalism, it is very easy to see how you can like force people into believing the only way to salvation is through money. Like the fact that an afterlife, because I'm big on afterlife should be just rest, but the fact that an afterlife is described as being paid with gold, why would I need material things if I'm dead? That doesn't make any damn sense. That I would need something that could make me feel like I'm better than other people while I'm alive, but while I'm dead, what does gold do for me if I can't breathe? That doesn't mean anything. So the idea of God that's sold to people, I don't believe is any of them iterations of God I'm speaking of. I believe it's just capitalism. God to humans is just capitalism. It's capitalism and it's escapism. Because the same argument you can make for why would I need to be alive again while I'm dead, also you can make for why is there, the easiest argument, why is there all these bad things happening around the world, but you're telling me that there's an all-knowing and all-loving God, but then you argue that there's a devil that's supposed to be combating it, but then you argue that the devil ain't stronger than God. So it's like, is it Uchi Wally Wally or is it one mic? Like, what are we talking about? Like, you giving me too much. You can't be an omnipotent, omniscient, benevolent being and then have somebody combat you. So that's why, like, even if you look at the superhero complex, as far as like everything, I call it the Superman complex, where there's a single person that has to be the thing that stops everything, regardless of anything that's in front of them. They have to be all-knowing, all-powerful, even if they don't want to be, but they just have to be, because people need something to believe in, because everybody else don't want to do it. So they create a Superman. So you create a God in a capitalist system to save you from your reality. So rather than rather than dealing with your material conditions and actually attacking the bullshit that's going on in your life, you would just look to God to save you on Sunday.
So I definitely think, just quickly, I think God could definitely, no, it's all good. I think God could definitely be used, or religion could definitely be used to pacify in a capitalist society, but the concept predates capitalism.
Yeah, for sure.
So the societal function that it played or plays began long ago.
But even with it predating capitalism, capitalism is still a form of control. Because when you look at it, so it's still I need to put these people in this box so I can make them do what I want them to do. The dollar, I need to put these people in this box so I can make them do what I want them to do. When you think about all the issues of the world that plague us today, it all kind of goes right back to capitalism. I mean, like again, even though I haven't read your book, but I've obviously heard you talk about your book and your theories and stuff of that nature. Then I just watch stuff in regards to like breaking down capitalism. It just all ties into control. So it's all a means of control. So if I can make you believe that you need somebody, that you need something to get to something else, you will do whatever I say. I don't necessarily even need to be a person. I could be an amorphous being. I could be something that you can never touch. In God we trust can be on the back of your dollar. You can never touch what God is. So like even to the point of God, there's two things in theology. There's dialectical theology. What dialectical theology is the argument that you can't argue God. It's too many contradictions. It's too much happening for you to be able to explain God with any kind of like concrete theory. So you just have to be cool with God just being. That's dialectical theology.
And what's the other one?
Natural theology is that God is just all the stuff that's going on, and you can observe God through nature. But then those two things obviously contradict each other, because if it's like you're saying that God is an insurmountable amount of arguments that we can have about God, so you can never narrow it down to one. So you just got to be cool with just faith, which faith in and of itself is a theory, because it's a belief. It's a thought process. You still have to believe something, even though there's nothing there. Faith is essentially, again, the leap of faith is because your ass don't want to walk to where you need to go, so you'd rather jump and possibly fall. So, but when you look at
look,
go ahead.
My bad. I definitely have to start this earlier next time.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I don't want to be disrespectful to you, but my energy is fading, and I know Eves is still waiting. So, but I want to if there's like a as they say, if you can land the plane, as they say, if there's something
get into it right now. So the overall thing from what it seemed that the gentleman was talking about before, like God and capitalism and all that, is that people just need to find a way to take a step back. Just take a step back and really look at who's talking to you and why they're saying this shit to you. Like, why are you being fed this? Not even that you're eating it. Why are you being fed this? I feel like not enough people ask why, and that's really it.
No, right on. I appreciate that.
No doubt.
And thank you for coming up here and building.
No doubt.
Like I said, we have to do this another time when I have more energy. But I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Peace.
And somebody just said this. It is true. Like this is how the atheist debates channels go. So like if and when we do this again, I'll maybe just set up a time for us to just do this from jump. We could do like a version of that, and I'll offer the arguments that they would offer. Like I was even thinking, so for instance, even in that conversation right there, one of the responses that I often see that I like is, if there is utility in religion, I'm not interested in it. I'm interested in is it true? Not does it have a utility? But then also the question that Dre was encouraging that we ask, why are we getting this? I like all that. All right, Eves, let's give this another shot and see if we can hear you, and then we can let you be the last for the evening. Yeah, go ahead. No, we don't hear you. You gotta. What is happening? You're not muted. I don't see the mute. I don't know what my bad, man. And Dre, my bad. I'm just letting you out the studio. But I don't know why I'm not hearing you, Eves. Yeah. But Eves, can we I don't know what to do. Honestly, I don't know what to do. But Maggie, I'm with you. I'll set up a full show for call-ins, but not limited to just religious. Right. I got you. We can definitely do that. My bad, Eves. Yeah, I'm not hearing you. I don't know. And I see that I don't know what it is. Your volume is right. Everything on this side is right. I just don't have an answer, and I'm sorry, because that's gotta be frustrating. Can you type something in the chat? No, it's all good. It's all good. I appreciate you trying to jump up, and if you can drop something in the chat real quick, I'll try to respond. Otherwise, we can Yipper's offering suggestions. Is the mic plugged in? Check your permission settings. Oh, it's all good, Dre. Thanks for coming through. I know he's got a nice mic set up there too. Oh, you could hear Roberto was doing his thing there for a minute. My bad. Salute to my pup. Yeah, I do. I am ready for bed. But listen, everybody, this has been great. And I will, and maybe even next week, I'll set up just a call-in thing. And Eves, did you try something else? Should we try one more time real quick? Let's try one more time.
One more time.
Oh,
you still can't hear me.
I hear you.
Oh, great.
I'm applauding.
That's embarrassing. I was a communication major at the illustrious Morgan State University, and I did my.
It happens to the best of us.
At BET when it was in DC.
Okay.
So I should be better at this, but thank you for letting me join.
Nah, man, it's all good. So what's up?
Well, earlier they were talking about material solutions, and I think understated, under discussed is I believe what we all intrinsically believe, which is a Pan-African solution for our problems would be ideal. I think I'm in the tech industry. I've seen how the CEOs that I report to are really interested in these new belief systems. I don't know if you're familiar with Curtis Yarvin and his Mencius Molebug blog that has been the major influencer on the radicalization to the right of the tech oligarchs, and they're angry. I don't know what they're so mad about. They're mad, they say they're mad about DEI, which really I didn't see that many more brothers getting jobs as engineers, or the opportunity being that big. And one data point that you haven't brought up when you're fighting the good fight against these neo black capitalists who believe in this concept of 1.4 trillion in spending power or buying power. Here's a statistic for you. Since George Floyd, venture capital, the percentage of venture capital reached its height under George Floyd, about 1.4% of all venture capital distributed. They're so angry at us, and they were so mad being forced to invest in black entrepreneurs that the years following it dropped down to 0.49% of all venture capital, and then this past year at 0.29% of all venture capital. We can't even get 1% of all funding. I've been building software applications since the mid 90s. I've seen the rise and the fall. I was there for the .com bust. This is a different anger from them, and I don't believe there's a future in front. And I don't believe that in a place where we are prosperous, sovereign, and free. I don't think that can happen here. I think the future is not just in some amorphous concept of Pan-Africanism, but a Pan-African state that is formulated in, you know, in a way that all African nations right now would have to admit is better than what they are right now. Right now, as scattered nations, they get picked off one by one. They get their names put on list. Since, you know, the famous 7 countries, including the 4 African ones that they knew they were going to attack after 9/11, and they did it. They attacked every single one except Iran, and this is going to continue. It's an existential crisis. It's not a one of just, hey, if we got together we'd make more money, or hey, if we got together we'd live more free. It's our leaders right now in Africa are giving immunity passports to Bill Gates to come and do experiments in you know, everything from digital IDs to vaccinations. We need to be able to create some kind of political construct that allows us to actually fight back in a meaningful way. What is happening in Palestine is a test. You think they stop there after they've ethnically cleansed these folks? Their next step is where the diamonds are, where the coltan is, where the cobalt is, where the iridium is. That's their next stop. And by the time they make that next stop, we'll be desensitized to what's happening. Marching is not enough. We need think tanks, Dr. Ball. We need people who are ready to make plans to execute in something that actually can determine our freedom. And not from one mind or one direction. I think we need to be all hands on deck and start talking about leaving this place. I think that's a key to our future, and not only would it, you know, change our material circumstances. Not only do we have in China a example of an economy, of an economic system and an education system where they pulled 800 million people out of poverty. If we followed that model, what could we do on the continent? It's an existential crisis. That's what we're talking about. It gets worse from here.
Listen, I appreciate that, and I in many ways agree. This is why we support United States of Africa, the struggle in the Sahel. We're encouraging a lot of what I support. A lot of what you're advocating, and trying to accumulate political power so that we could be able to do those things. And that's why the AAPRP says that. I mean, that's been their focus. We need to reclaim the continent of Africa, United States of Africa, and I agree.
I just believe, I believe that the West has no conscience. Whether they're under the spell of whiteness or that this is just who they are, I believe that we have enough evidence that now, in hindsight, we could look back and say, God damn it, Nkrumah was right. When you listen to Malcolm, it sounds like he said these things last week because they haven't changed their methodology. They do the same thing over. They set up the patsy. They foment the environment to have negative things happen. They fund things through USAID. They buy politicians. I'm of Haitian descent, as you can tell from the French name, and I've lived through 3 coups d'états. And then they just assassinated our president and tried to make it seem like it was just a random group of Colombians led by some of the dumbest civil society people there is. And I went to work the next day. I haven't been to my house in Haiti since 2021. They blocked the road on Route Nationale going to my house. This is them. There's no way to fight them back unless we start playing on the international field. We know it's right because they still put Pan-Africans in jail. They just locked up Omali Yeshitela. They have action against us. They search for keywords. If you look on WikiLeaks and you put in the term Pan-African, you see that they use that term in cables going back and forth to Hillary Clinton. This is what they fear, that at one day they would see a military wearing all the same uniform as young Algerian soldiers, South African soldiers, Sudanese soldiers, all marching in the same direction, carrying the same weapon. That is what terrifies them. And until we start clearing the fog in our head, that thing that makes us even kind of pause when we say we're African, like, what European, no matter how many years separated from Europe, ever says that they're not European, or don't acknowledge or puff out their chest like, yeah, I'm Italian and we were the Romans and we fucked y'all up for hundreds of years. We can't even say, like, sometimes we have to stop and think, am I African? Because we are so poisoned. And I'm sorry if I go back and I read Martin Delaney and I'm ashamed of myself. I lived through 4 coups d'etats and I went to work the next day and made these people their money. And I'm sorry, passionate about the subject.
No, listen. I appreciate it, and the only reason I'm not meeting your passion is because I'm on E. So listen. Let me thank you for this and invite you to come back. Maybe even just next week, and I'll even start this earlier, and we can keep going, and I'll be able to hopefully better meet your energy and continue the conversation. But I do need to wrap it up. But I appreciate you struggling through the tech, making the points, and hanging out. I appreciate it.
Hey, Dr. Ball, one last thing.
Sure.
I wanted to send you a copy of my book. Is
word.
Sending it to campus a good place?
It is. I tell you what, send me an email. I'll make sure you get the right address, because I don't currently have a faculty page, and I want to make sure it gets to the right building. So if you would email me first, imixwhatilike@gmail.com. I'll make sure you get the and I appreciate it. I look forward to it. Thank you very much. Peace. Right on. Thank you very much, Eves. And thank you, everybody else. Everybody, this has been a lot of fun, and I think I will start this earlier next time. We used to do community comment at WPFW, and I used to have fun with that. I think this is cool. So, and I love you too. Thank you very much. Next week, maybe God can come on. I mean, you talk about breaking the internet. You talk about going viral. All right, everybody. No, big shout out. Thank you, everybody, for coming through, to the folks who came on the stage here, so to speak, and everybody in the chat, those who will see and hear this later. Thank you very much as well. But it is past bedtime. Big fun, everybody. Peace, only if you're willing to fight for it, as Fred Hampton used to say, and I'll catch you next time right here at...
And what did you sacrifice? Calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago for which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, that set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.